All right, ready? Can you hear me well?
We are live.
All right, we're live with You Are Not Normal with TONYMONT. This is the second podcast we're shooting, even though the first one was 3 segments, because we went a little long, which I like to do. I'm a talker. As we discussed, I'm from the Midwest, so I like to talk. But the way we're going to set this one up, it's a solo kinda-ish podcast, and I'm going to go over what I went through the last couple weeks, what I've experienced, the good, the bad, and the funny. And we'll go from there into rapid fire questions from my DMs. I'm live right now on Instagram. Started at 23. We're down to 11. So I'm not very entertaining so far because they've just been seeing me sitting here wait. So I want to talk about Jocko Willink. So I went out to San Diego and went to the Echelon Front Mastermind with Jocko and Leif, Babin, and their entire team. And I got to say, this event that we went to is a leadership event. It was an extreme ownership event. And it was the best event I've ever been to for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons being it was so well ran, and it made me realize how events should be ran. It was ran down to the second. Everything started on time. Everybody was on time. Every speaker that was up there gave really, really good information, and they stuck to their time. So we never got behind. Everything started and stopped at exactly when it should have. And the information was so good. It was captivating. Like, I never once got up and said, man, I need a break from all this. Every single time somebody was done speaking, I was, inspired by what they said. I wrote a ton of notes. They had a really good workbook to go along with it. And I couldn't wait for the next person to get up there and start talking. So, we go to all these events in real estate, wholesaling, and a lot of times, it's kind of mundane. It's the same stuff over and over. The speakers aren't that good. Sometimes they have people up there that are selling a product and they're not really giving any good value. They're just trying to sell you something. Which was another thing I wanted to talk about. Like, these guys, I only learned about this event because I followed Jocko, and he never once even posted about it. And I just happened to click on his website, and I was like, I know he does events. I know he does some type of leadership events. So I clicked on his website and saw that he was going to San Diego, bought my ticket. Eric bought his ticket, and we went out there. So it wasn't even advertised. And he filled a room of 1,000 people for $2,500 a ticket without even advertising it. And, you typically go to these events and you think, all right, I'm at this event. He's got 1,000 people in the room. What's his pitch going to be? What's he going to sell us on? What's the $40,000 or $100,000 ticket item that he's going to tell us about? And it never came. He never pitched the audience on anything. He was just giving value. At the very end, they did discuss other products, but they didn't try to sell you on them. They just said, hey, this is everything we offer. If anything interests you, go to the website and click on it. And that was it. They didn't do any offers, no discounts, nothing like that. And when we went to the event, they were discussing, every morning we're going to get up at 4 a.m., we're going to meet downstairs at 4:30, and we're going to work out from 4:30 to 5:30. And the first day, there was like 400 or 500 people out of 1,000 that met downstairs at 4:30 and did this outdoor workout in the rain, in the cold, during San Diego's one storm of the year. And it was just epic. Everybody was just on point. There was, fit people, fat people, skinny people. There was everybody in between. There was old people, young people, women, men, everything. Non-binary, probably. I doubt at a Jocko event there was anybody non-binary, but it was just, it was, everybody was like-minded. Had really good conversations with people that were there at the event, and it was a leadership event, but the common theme always for leadership and everything that they taught was just killing your ego and being humble. That was the theme through every single speech they gave. And that led into everything else, creating relationships. And whether it's a good or a bad relationship you have with somebody, all you can control is how you respond to that, not the other person. And a lot of that comes down to psychology. And as he was talking about psychology and how to deal with certain people and certain types of people, it reminded me of sales too. It's the same thing we do in sales over the phone or in person, where you're trying to steer this relationship and conversation into them buying something from you. And it's just the same in relationships. You're trying to steer this to where both of you can win. And I've always said that, like, sales is just relationships. You know, it could be a 40-minute relationship over the phone while we're trying to buy a house from somebody. It could be an hour-long relationship. It could be a 5-minute relationship when somebody comes into your store to buy a hat. But it's all just a small or a big relationship when it comes to sales. You have this, special little relationship to get them to buy into what you're selling. And the extreme ownership part of it was just owning every aspect of that, owning the way you react to certain things, whether it's good or bad, killing your ego, and then, of course, discipline, which Jocko is, the best at, I believe. If you guys follow him, every single morning, takes a picture of his, $6 Timex, 4:32 a.m., he's up working out. And, a lot of people talk about how disciplined I am. How do I get so disciplined? How do I get so disciplined? And after that event, every single day after that event, I just shook my head and I said, man, I got a lot of room to get a lot more disciplined in my life. I'm disciplined in some aspects, but not totally. And it was very humbling for me to be at that event. So it was phenomenal. In the morning too, there's no VIP tickets. There's no special treatment. Like, whenever you get there, the first person at the door has to sprint to the front to get a front row seat. And, ever since I've been going to events with Eric, we always want to get front row, and we can usually pay for it with a VIP. Well, this time there was no VIP. So we were just with the rest of everybody else. And after the workout, we got done at 5:30. Me and Eric ran upstairs to be first in line. Nobody else was up there. We were still sweaty in our workout clothes. And even the workers were like, what the hell's wrong with you two? What are you doing here? And we were like, well, we want to be first in line. They're like, well, people aren't even going to start lining up for another hour. You got 2 hours before the doors open. And we were like, yeah, we don't care. We want to be first in line. So we went in shifts. Eric stayed there. I ran back, got us breakfast, and took a shower, ran back to relieve him, gave him his breakfast. He ran up to his room, took a shower, came down, and we ran to the front row both days to get front row, which made the event even better. So that was just a great event I wanted to share with you guys. If you guys haven't been to an Echelon Front event for leadership with Jocko and Leif and the team, definitely go to one. Can't recommend it enough. And then after that, I went out to Scottsdale and brought my RV and my off-road desert truck out to Scottsdale to leave it out there instead of in San Diego. It's easier for me to get to Phoenix than San Diego from Raleigh. And I have a quick little story about that. So I went out there, and of course I get my truck out there. There's tons of places to off-road, and I want to drive it as much as I can before I fly back. So Thursday, get out there, we go off-roading and had a great time. Truck did very, very well. And then on Saturday, I was flying back and decided, hey, let's do one more run with the truck in the desert. So we did kind of the same route we did on Thursday, and I should have known better because I just did this route. But we go to this point, right outside of Scottsdale in the desert, and we kind of took the easy way up. And then we're like, all right, let's get down the point and then take the hard way up. And there's this, real narrow trail to get up to the point, and the truck barely fits. And I got to stay on the gas to climb this really steep hill. And you get to the top of it, you get on a ridge, you got to take a hard right. And I forgot you had to take a hard right. So we get to the top of this ridge. I rolled a little bit too straight, and my truck got sideways down this cliff. We started feeling like we were going to roll. So I turned down the cliff, and then we skidded to a stop down this steep ass cliff in my truck. And we ended up about 15 feet, maybe 20 feet down this cliff, like heading straight down where it's just like a couple 100-foot drop off. And people usually would be like, holy shit, did you freak out? Were you scared? I wasn't at all. It was just, I was kind of laughing about it. I was like, oh shit, we're in a real sticky situation. We got to get pulled out of this thing. So radioed to Brandon. He came back down, hooked me up, and we ended up getting out. And then we off-roaded the rest of the day, and it was fine. But little hairy situation there. It was probably one of the hairiest situations I've been in off-roading, especially in a long time. But it makes for a good story. It was kind of fun. And then last night went to Theo Vaughn, who you guys might know, great comedian. And there's a few things as he was up there. He went an hour and a half on stage, and it was unbelievable how comfortable he was on stage talking to an audience, sold out arena. And it gave me some ideas for the podcast too, because all he did was tell stories, and he, elaborates on these stories to make them entertaining. Like most of you who know Theo Vaughn, you would know he's kind of a crazy dude. He goes off on these tangents about these stories, and they're all hilarious, but I'm sure there's a little bit of truth to it and a lot of bit of him just elaborating to make it funny. And it gave me an idea here where, every time we hop on the mic to do the podcast, I have all these stories from the last week or two, and I can tell you guys what's been going on with my life, add a little bit of humor to it, and try to entertain everybody. So that's how we're going to do this moving forward. And also after my experience over the last week or two, we're going to do rapid fire DMs, and Mr. Giovanni is here to help me with that. So Gio, when you're ready, I'm happy to answer these rapid fire DMs.
Let's get to it. So, first one, you want to know who it's from? Does it matter?
Yeah.
First one is from Camo. We all know Camo. What is the importance of patience as an entrepreneur?
Camo asks, what's the importance of patience as an entrepreneur? I think patience in general is very important, especially for an entrepreneur. But people, even somebody commented on my reel the other day or yesterday about me like reading off a script, and they're like, man, why are you so monotone? Why is your tonality so calm? And I think that all comes from patience. Like, I'm a deep thinker, and I don't want to just have a knee-jerk reaction with every single thing that comes across, because usually your first reaction to something is an emotional reaction. And I think having patience will definitely help you come up with a logical answer, or a way to solve a problem, or a way to rebuttal an objection. So patience, in general is super important, but as an entrepreneur, if you're just flying off the handle every time, you're going to fail a lot because you're going off of emotion and not logic.
Stack It Up Peso has two questions. The first one, what is your criteria on comping? Can you do an example, especially in rural areas?
Yeah, comping is tough. If you guys need help with comping, I sell it on my disposition course. I have some looms on there that show comping. But real quick, rural, there's no magic pill. Everybody asks about rural deals. You kind of got to go wide and further back to get comps, but you got to just do the best you can on rural. Make sure with any comping, I always start with the newest data. And the newest data for me is what is for sale, what's pending. So I always look at what's for sale, what's pending, how quickly is it going pending, and what is it going for on the MLS? Is it selling for way less than they listed it, way more, just what they list it for? That's your immediate data. Then you want to go back 90 days, 6 months, and see what's sold in your immediate area. When you're running comps on Zillow, make sure you click on the satellite view so you can see the differences in the neighborhoods. A lot of us just kind of stick to the map view, and all you're seeing is a bunch of lines on a screen. You don't know what these neighborhoods really look like. So as you're running comps, look at a satellite view. You can get a better view of the neighborhood, the differences in the neighborhoods, and why comps are selling for more or less in this neighborhood compared to yours. So stay tight and then go wide as you have to, and then always look at Propstream and see what your cash buys are going for. Yeah, money to me is freedom, and so is discipline. So you can't have money without discipline. And I just like to stay one track minded when it comes to that. So the minute I take, my foot off the gas in any aspect of my life, a lot of other aspects of my life get the gas taken off as well. So I think if you're trying to go hard with business, you got to go hard in life. If you're trying to go hard with making money or being disciplined, you got to go hard with every single thing you do, because if you're only disciplined in one aspect of life, it's going to screw up a lot of other areas. So you got to go hard in everywhere you do, and the money's going to come. Money's a byproduct of discipline and hard work. And, nobody really gives a shit anyway. You can make $10 million and be unhappy. I mean, I remember times I was making $2,000 a month and I was super happy. And I remember times I was making $100,000 a month and I was miserable. So don't be so married to the money, be married to the discipline.
Do you have a negotiation script / tips for dispo?
Tons of tips for dispo. No negotiation script, really. A lot of people, there's strategies we use that's in the script, but there's no true like back and forth negotiation in a script. At some point, we just got to be good salespeople. Everybody wants every single thing scripted, and I get it. We can do that to a point. But at some point, when you're switching from a wholesale deal to novations, or somebody's giving objections, or somebody's trying to beat you up on price, you have to have the skills of being in sales for a long time to overcome that. So at some point, the script is a great outline of how the conversation's going to go, but you just got to get really good at sales. And I just put this mug right in front of the camera. Sorry for those of you that are okay.
Next one, how to find hedge funds acquisitions reps.
Yeah, hedge funds, always talk about this. LinkedIn is the best place for hedge funds. You can actually see the funds on Propstream when you're running comps. Fund my own, 6,000 properties. You can just grab that mailing address, look it up on Google. It'll tell you the fund on the first page, Tricon, Amherst, ResiCap, whoever it might be. And then you can just go on LinkedIn, type in that hedge fund, click on the people that work there, and type in acquisition or acquisitions, and it'll show you everybody who works for that fund and their title acquisitions, and those are the people you want to get a hold of.
From Kirsten Banks, in the pursuit of personal development, do you think there's a balance between pushing oneself out of comfort zones and practicing self-compassion? And if so, how do you find that balance?
No, I don't think there's any. I don't think you should be. Read that again, Gio. So you're pushing yourself, and she's wondering if you need some self-compassion. No, I don't look at it that way at all. Self-compassion is just. I feel like for me, I mean, everybody's different. For me, that's kind of an excuse. I'm really hard on myself, and that's helped with my success in my life. I could tell a quick story about my dad, who, was working like 2 jobs this one time. He was, my dad always, woke up at, 4:30 in the morning, left for work at 5. He would come home, he'd drink all night, get up at the same time. He never called in sick in 30 plus years. He worked at a factory. And I remember even through all that, he was working, my dad never worked less than 50, 60 hours a week his entire life, always relied on overtime, never made a shit ton of money, but worked really hard, did okay for himself. But I remember he got a part-time job at a grocery store, like driving a forklift during all this. And he was working really long hours. And I decided, hey, I'm going to mow the lawn for my dad because he's all worn out. And why not, make sure he doesn't have to come home and worry about that. My dad was really meticulous. He had like OCD. And I used to mow lawns for a living, so I knew what I was doing. And I was probably 14, 15 years old, probably 14. And I mowed my dad's lawn. I overlapped every single line, made sure I did it perfect. I bagged the grass. I did all this stuff. And I remember my dad came home that night and he said, who mowed the lawn? And I was like, oh, he's going to be all proud of me and everything. And I was like, yeah, that was me. I mowed the lawn. Like, where's my high five? And he said, you fucked it all up. You missed a spot. And he went and remowed the entire lawn to teach me a lesson. I don't know what that lesson was, but it it was maybe a little excessive, but he instilled, and my mom too. My mom was a really hard worker. This is just a story about my dad, but he instilled to me that you got to go above and beyond. And I'm not sure exactly what he was trying to teach me, but that's a story where, it keeps me really hard on myself. I'm not real compassionate about myself, to be honest. And, I leave that for other people. Other people can be worried about me. I'm not worried about myself.
Follow to that, as a mindset enthusiast, how do you approach setbacks or failures, and what advice would you give to others navigating similar challenges?
Yeah, if you push yourself and you're trying to do things out of your comfort zone and you're challenging yourself on things that are really, really hard to do, obviously you're going to have some failures. But start looking at those failures as learning experiences and ways to get better. So I'm hard on myself on a failure for a little bit amount of time because I know, okay, I learned from this. It's not a total failure because I learned. So you're not really failing. You're actually gaining knowledge. So I know the next time I do it, I'm going to do it way better. I'm going to do it more efficient. I screwed up here. Now I know how to fix that. So I think it's great to be hard on yourself when you do fail for a moment and then realize what you learned and then fix it. How are we doing on the time on the?
We're good for about 8 minutes. Best tips for on-market dispo.
On-market dispo? Oh, geez. I don't know what that question is. On-market dispo meaning maybe you locked a deal up that's on market and you're trying to dispo it on market. Well, obviously that deal has to be in this market we're in right now. Like, the market is, interest rates are still up. They're not crazy. It's kind of leveled out. But, in the past when the market was cranking, you could lock up a deal if you were first after it on the market for damn near what it was listed for and still dispo it and sell it to somebody because they knew the market was going crazy. Right now, you just got to get that deeply discounted and you got to be upfront with your buyers and say, hey, I got this under contract on market and it's actually listed at 150. I can sell it to you for 140. So right now in this market, you just got to get them discounted in order to dispo them. And another thing we do too is, this is a good opportunity for you, Mr. Buyer. And I'm the one that has the contract. So if you don't want it, I'll just buy it because I know it's a good deal. And we tell buyers that all the time. Like, hey, if you don't want it because you see it listed and you feel like you missed out on getting this deal because it's listed and you're emotional about, me getting the contract and you not getting the contract, then I'll just buy the damn thing because I know it's such a good deal.
I want to follow up real quick on that. You say emotional a lot. What do you mean when you say emotional?
There's just men that are emotional out there and it's embarrassing. Like we know, somebody who, went live and created a reel about me because I posted a $5,000 reduction call. Like that was an emotional response to something that is really embarrassing. Like you should never have like true emotional responses to somebody doing something. And it's the same with these buyers. Like if they're getting emotional over what you're doing, they're losing money. We had a deal one time in Charlotte where we were making $60,000 on a wholesale deal. It's the only time a buyer backed out because they were emotional about how much money we were making and how much money they thought they were going to make. They're like, oh, you're making 60 grand. I'm only going to make 40 grand on this flip. There's no way you're making more than me on this. I'm giving up my $5,000 earnest. And unless you come down on your assignment, and I'm okay with paying you 20 grand, but not 60 grand. So we just said, okay, fuck you. Go ahead and back out. We'll keep your 5 grand. We closed on the damn deal with our own cash, and then we hoteled it and made, 50 grand on it, plus his 5 grand EMD. So his emotions got in the way of him making money. He ended up losing $5,000 instead of making $40,000 plus on that deal. So he's upside down 45 grand on that deal, and we were upside 50 grand on the deal. So that's the difference between going off emotion and going off of logic.
Last question we're going to do, and this one's the hard hitter. If that fight had never happened, do you think you'd be the man you are today with the same opportunities? Do you ever imagine what life would be like today, who you would be, and what you would be doing if that had happened differently?
Yeah, so the fight that got me locked up in a first-degree murder trial, I mean, obviously, I wish it didn't happen because somebody lost their life. And that was one of the last things I said as I was on the stand and the state was cross-examining me. She said, what you did that night, was that wrong, Mr. Montalbano? And I said, absolutely. I said, if I could do anything to change that, I would. I said, I reacted in the wrong. Everybody was in the wrong that night. I wish it never happened. Somebody lost their life. Of course, my actions were wrong that night. And she was like, case dismissed. She thought she had this thing wrapped up. She thought the jury was going to see that as me admitting guilt. But what the jury saw was just, at that, I was 22 when I got arrested. I was 23, I think, 24 when I was in my trial. And the jury, instead of seeing that as an admission of guilt, they saw empathy and sympathy inside me. And they were like, this kid did not want to hurt anybody. I had a reaction to something, and unfortunately somebody lost their life. But would I have changed it? I would change that part of it if I could. But the experience of hitting rock bottom is what gave me the foundation to build the life I have today. If that never happened, something else would have happened. Like, it's not like I was living this great life and being good to myself and others, and it just so happened, I accidentally killed somebody in a bar fight. Like, I was doing tons of drugs, drinking a lot. I was living extremely reckless. I had no discipline back then. I had no self-worth. I didn't love myself. I didn't love anybody. And it ultimately ended that night. So, my mom used to see how angry I would get back then. And even as a little kid, I would get so angry sometimes I would black out and not remember, slamming my fist on the counter for, 10 seconds in a row, and my hand would be all swollen, or I would get so mad and frustrated. I'd go in my room and I'd throw my mattress and I'd punch my pillow, and I had all this rage inside of me. And she would always say, you're either going to end up dead or killing somebody one day. And that is exactly what happened. I accidentally killed somebody one day. So it's not like I was living this fairy tale life. I would have ended up either dead or in prison anyway. So I look at it as it happened at a time of my life, at a perfect time of my life when I needed a change. And that goes back to what Jocko talks about. And it's your reaction to those things. I could have said, fuck it, I'm going to keep living this way. I'm going to continue being a piece of shit. I got out of this situation. That means it was a freebie, a mulligan, and I can go back to getting drunk and doing blow and partying and being a piece of shit. But instead, I was sitting in jail. I had a yellow jumpsuit on, which they only give to the most violent criminals. I was in a tier of murderers and rapists. It was all class 4 and class X felons in my tier. There were 70 people in this tier. And, I was 22 years old, and I already had, tattoos and stuff, and thought I was like, big man on campus. I, thought, I grew up in this small town, and everybody thought I was cool and crazy, and I partied hard, and I was fucking nuts, and I took all these risks. And it was super humbling being in that jail cell with all these other criminals. And my suit didn't even fit me. They gave me a small, so I couldn't even get my jumpsuit over my shoulders. So I'm walking around barefoot. They wouldn't even give me slippers or socks. And I could only bring my pants up. So I had no shirt on the whole time. All these stupid tattoos. And in my jail cell, they gave me the one closest to it shared the outside wall, and it was like November, And in Chicago, or Rockford outside of Chicago, it was cold. And the inside of my cell would get frost on the wall and on the ceiling. And I didn't even have a blanket or a pillow. So I would lay up there in my bunk on the top bunk, and this ice cold water would drip on me all night long. And I just remember sitting there and being like, this is not the way I want to live my life. Like there's a lot of career criminals in here that can't get their shit together. Like I come from a better place than that. I'm not trying to be these people. This is not a lifetime for me. If and when I get out of this situation, or if I do spend the rest of my life in prison, no matter what the outcome is, I wasn't even worried about the outcome at that time. I just said something absolutely has to change right now. And that was going to change if I was a free man or if I stayed in prison. I would have changed because I didn't like who I was. I was miserable. And so, yeah, I mean, to answer the question, I guess, I'm glad I hit rock bottom because I always say that's my superpower. Hitting rock bottom means I'm not scared of little bullshit that comes up throughout the day. I don't get overly excited. Told you guys about the story of almost rolling my truck last weekend. I didn't get scared. I didn't get nervous. I wasn't scared I was going to die. I just reacted to what the truck did. I corrected it perfectly so we didn't get into trouble, and I stayed completely calm. And everybody says my demeanor is so calm, I'm so even keeled. Well, shit, you face life in prison at 22 years old, and you spend, some time in jail with a bunch of people that just stabbed their girlfriend to death. And you will too, figure out that little things that life throws at you doesn't get you too excited.
All right, cool. Just wrap it up. Thank the audience. I'm going to take a break first.
All right. That's it. Thank you so much for joining us on our second podcast. You are not normal. And please comment, like, share it. I think that's something people say. If you guys are enjoying this, and please give me suggestions. Like we're winging this. We're bootstrapping this podcast, but it's all for you guys. I want to be entertaining. If you guys want to talk about sales and wholesaling, cool. If you want to talk about my life, if you want me to tell old stories, you want me to be more funny, you want me to bring guests in, whatever you guys want to do, please comment. And thank you so much for joining me. And thank you so much to the audience for joining me. There's only 7, 8, 9 people on the live right now. Started a lot bigger, so I'm not that entertaining on live, I guess. But anyways, see you guys at the top.